Today's Manhwa begins with us being shown the Fengui continent. The Liu Yun sword sect is located here. Large, beautiful buildings are visible all around, and beautiful cranes are flying in the sky. Next, we see an array of Jushin swords. Right next to the eye of the array lies a guy dressed in white clothes and apparently unconscious. A girl in pink approaches him and apparently wants to study him. Looking at the handsome guy, this girl is already drooling and is very happy that for the first time in 1,000 years, she managed to find a 9-yang diamond body. She believes that this is a devilish blessing. It turned out that the guy's name is Xiao and the girl's name is Miaoxin, and she is the head of the Yang Sect. She saw that the guy was lying unconscious and took advantage of the moment and straddled him, regretting that she was late, because she thinks that the guy was killed. As you can see, Miaoxin really had very dirty thoughts. She begins to slowly undress at Xiao and noticing that the body is still warm and is going to have fun with him. But unfortunately for her, he opened his eyes. Having opened his eyes, the main character Xiao is horrified to discover a half-naked lady on himself who was going to do something to him. He does not understand where he is right now, because he only recently opened the mysterious box at home. We see the prehistory of how a guy some time ago received a mysterious box from a joyful courier. He paid 9.9 wen for it and is already going to take it to see what's inside. Having started to cut the box with a knife, the guy discovers that something inside the box begins to glow, opening the box completely. Some mysterious blue portal can be seen inside it. Xiao looks at this portal in surprise and thinks that it is a 3D image of a wormhole, and already puts his right hand into it, not thinking at all about the consequences, and notices that it is slowly starting to suck him in. As a result, Xiao's carelessness makes itself felt. The box has almost completely sucked him in, and he only manages to shout at the end he is dissatisfied with this because right now he was going to go to KFS with his friends. We return to the present, where the guy is already woken up and does not understand where he is now, thinking that he was in another world. The former owner of his new body had the same first and last name, but he was killed, and the main character moved into his body. Despite the fact that the main character has already woken up, the hungry Miaoxin is not going to get up from him at all. She turns to him and says that screaming is useless, and she is going to eat him. The guy lying under this girl remembers that the previous owner of his body was just about to be torn into pieces. Right now, he is afraid that he will actually be eaten by this girl of easy virtue. Miaoxin looks at the handsome guy with her loving eyes and is already making plans for him. She tells him that she is going to suck every last drop out of him, and she likes to watch him tremble in horror. But for some reason, the young guy was no longer frightened by this girl's words. He was simply surprised to realize what miracles could happen here. And Miaoxin was perplexed because she thought that he would now be scared. Suddenly, the violet-haired girl's attention is attracted by someone screaming behind her. That person calling her a witch threw a large, sharp sword straight at her back, apparently with the intention of finishing her off. It would seem that nothing in this world would force Miaoxin to stand up with Xiao, but the sword was able to do this, and she, dissatisfied with the fact that her fun was interrupted, flies into the sky and knocks the sword away. Unexpectedly for the main character, someone grabbed him by the scruff of the neck from behind and dragged him along. Without expecting this, he was very surprised and already thinks that someone decided to strangle him right now. It turned out that this is the girl who threw the sword at that witch. This girl's name is Lu Shuang, and she is the inner disciple of the Liu Yun sword sect. Continuing to drag the guy along with her, she asks him not to worry because she will save him. The evil witch can only watch as her victim flies away with her savior. Looking after them, she promises Liu Shuang that she will not be able to run for long and that soon the Yang Sect will crush the Liu Yun sect. This young predator is confident in her abilities and says that not a single man she has her eye on can escape from her. She believes that she can always achieve her goals. A serious girl says that demonic cultivators have destroyed the mountain gates, so they need to retreat to the courtyard of Shoujian. At this time, Xiao, hugging her leg, asks to fly more carefully because he is scared. Events are transferred to the Liu Yun sword sect. To the sword courtyard, Miaoxin has already gathered her people, and they are hovering over the people of this sect. She asks them all to lay down their weapons, and then promises them to live. Otherwise, he'll let them not call her a murderer. Meanwhile, Liu Shuang and Xiao arrived, standing in front of her comrades. She says that the 3 great demonic sects have united to attack them, telling about everything. She understands that everything is not in their favor. After her speech, the yellow-haired girl turns directly to the main character and says that the demonic cultivators are about to attack, so they should prepare for their general execution. Xiao listened to the words of his savior, and sitting on the stick, he falls into severe shock and becomes very scared. The guy cannot understand what kind of execution he is talking about and thinks that his days are numbered. He has just arrived in this world and already thinks that he will not live to see tomorrow. He cannot believe it. The main character is already in tears and thinks that it would be better if that lady could drain him. Then he would die with pleasure. Next, we are shown a guy named Minkan. He is the senior disciple of this sect. Raising his big sword, he says that he did not expect that his sect would be under strong pressure, but the truth is cruel and merciless. Minkan says that demonic cultivators are very cruel. They are just like beasts. The honor of any female cultivator who gets to them will be trampled upon, and they will be treated worse than death. So it will be better to die. These bastards also see men as toys. They suck the yang out of them until their death in order to feed their yin. The male part of the sect considers this very disgusting, and you can see how much they don't like it. Xiao, of course, listened to all the words of the guy with the sword, the main character as a person who just recently found himself in the clutches of that hungry witch. Smilingly understands that these demons and the dead are doing it, but doesn't tell anyone about it. Ming Khan, raising his strong fist, tells his friends that in the name of the glorious Liu Yun sword sect, dignity, and everything that is right, they will under no circumstances surrender to these demonic creatures and will fight them to the end. Raising his sword in front of him, he shouts that it would be better to die than to shamefully lay down his weapon. So this guy is trying to instill motivation in his comrades so that they fight back together.
All the disciples of the sect heard him, and their words apparently had a positive influence on them. They repeated his words in chorus, after which they all took out their weapons and prepared to fight.
Xiao considers himself the smartest. He is used to coming up with various strategies in Valorant and thinks that he can do this in a real battle. He considers the actions of the sect students to be very stupid, believing that this will lead them to defeat. While he was in his thoughts, Lu Shuang approached him and offered to kill him so that he would not fall into the hands of demonic cultivators. The guy does not understand what is happening and will simply stop her, because this is not humane. Next, we'd see how the main character was contacted by a system that offers the guy its services. He is glad that he finally received these cheats, because this was his dream. He is going to become a god for these people right now. Of course, Xiao agrees with the system's proposal. Pressing a certain button, his mysterious box appears in front of him. He cannot take his eyes off it, and he is already very interested in what will happen next. Then we again see the yellow-haired girl with a sword, who is going to finish off the main character for good purposes. She asks him to take care of himself in the afterlife, and promises that his sister will join him soon. After these words, the guy did not react to her in any way, and she had already delivered her blow, although she missed, because our deft Xiao managed to dodge her blow and began to look at the mysterious box with a thoughtful look. Going to open it, he hopes that there, just like in his home, there will be a wormhole that will take him back to the 21st century. He doesn't want to die here without trying pizza with pineapples. As you can see, he opened this box and, to his surprise, found that what came out of it was an absolute level weapon. Namely the Autumn Fire Artillery with 3 barrels, which is currently in trial version. This is not what he wanted, but it will also do. Of course, oh bro, all these people immediately turned their attention to her. Xiao understands that the demonic cultivators are now doomed. Ming-Kan does not understand where he got the immortal weapon because the guy is only at the 4th level of key purification. In the next chapter, we see how the time that the demonic cultivators gave for the Liu Yun sword sect has expired. So Miao Xin makes it clear to these guys that they are going to attack them right now. Of course, the disciples of this sect were frightened by the words of their enemy. Noticing how they were about to attack, they were a little scared, but Minkin is not going to give up and stands his ground. He expects the same from his comrades. The main character has an ace up his sleeve, and it is this absolute level weapon with which he is going to finish off these demons. He has already taken aim at them and is going to shoot from 3 barrels at once. Without hesitation, he fired from this weapon, and immediately after that, several large projectiles fly at their enemies, which will knock the crap out of them. The shells, having flown some distance, are already beginning to fall directly on the stupid heads of the demonic cultivators. They, of course, did not expect such a turn of events and already thought that they could defeat them without any problems. But that was not the case. But then suddenly, for everyone on the side of the demons, some man with dark blue hair makes himself known. He, being confident in his abilities, simply grabbed one of these shells and is going to show his strength. It is clear that this strong man is very serious. He continues to hold this heavy projectile in his hands and is already beginning to squeeze it. asking everyone around to look at it. Apparently, he wants everyone to admire him. And then, unexpectedly for everyone, the shell that this man was holding exploded. Apparently, he had finished the game. The crowd looked at this very surprised. They were shocked that the period of construction of the foundation was completely destroyed. The demonic cultivators were already slightly tensed. Everyone around was convinced that this was actually a magical weapon, and the demons were already suggesting that this could be the legendary Zhu Xian sword formation. As a result, these projectiles reached the evil demonic cultivators. They were unable to fight them off and are now scattered in different directions from a heap of explosions. The members of the Liu Yun sect are very glad that they will not have to sacrifice themselves in battle. The losers from the Heihuan sect realize that they are trapped and unable to do anything against this magical weapon. Their leader, Miao Xin, tells his people to all retreat as quickly as possible. After all these crazy events, a time of peace has temporarily arrived. We see a large and beautiful building of Tibetan scriptures, in which apparently further events will take place. Inside this building, Mingkan approaches Xiao Qi. While addressing him, he says that ordinary students do not have the right to enter this building, but for this hero who saved the lives of many, they made an exception. The serious protagonist continues to stand in his army stance, saluting, and meanwhile, he is told that he made a great contribution in the battle, and because of this, they want to reward him by reading a secret book. Xiao Chu is very happy with these words and thanks Min Kan for this, continuing to give him his honor with a serious face, and of course, he expects his reward. Then we see the hand of Min Kan, which reaches out to the door, on which there is some kind of strange magic seal. Apparently, he uses it to close the main character in the room. Blue-haired asks Lu Shuang to quickly send a message to his master Fei He. The guy wants her to convey what Xiao Qie took from the demon cultivator and let him return as soon as possible. And the yellow-haired one, as befits a good younger sister, makes it clear to her older brother that the message has already been transmitted. The director and her master will be able to return in about half an hour. The main character overheard their conversation outside the door. He understands that they are talking about the captured body, and he thought something about their words. Realizing that something is unclean here and they are going to do something. He looks very surprised and frightened, since the fact that it entered the body of their younger brother was discovered very quickly in his opinion, and it seems they didn't like it at all, so they closed it. The main character is already tired of sitting in this room, locked with a seal and with difficulty holding back his tears. He wants to get to his home as quickly as possible. He asks to be let out because he no longer wants to participate in this. Lu Shuang really didn't like the fact that our guy was knocking and screaming behind this door, about to take out his sword. She asks if he dares to be dishonest. She promises to kill him if he takes the body of her younger brother. Xiao Che, having already finished his blows on this door, realizes that it's all over and there is no way out. Because this door is sealed, so he needs a new plan. Otherwise, everything could end very badly. Holding his head, the guy tells himself that at the moment he can't worry at all, so he needs to calm down. Most likely this loser has claustrophobia, and that's why he's scared. Having calmed Poppa down, this genius understands that there is no science in this world. There is only magic. And apparently, the very artillery with which he defeated the demonic cultivators is classified as a magical weapon. Looking at the interface of his system, he realizes that the experimental equipment has disappeared, so the explanation will definitely not work. And he will also see the order of the various events that happened to him earlier. Starting his thoughts with a smart look, he realizes that the root most likely lies in the mysterious box. And while he can open another wormhole, he can solve it by returning to his 21st century. The system says that the entrance to the level of the forbidden zone of the Sutra Library has been discovered and invites the guy to enter there. He is very grateful to the system and says that, as always, it arrived on time. Xiao Che, opening this box, discovers in it a Pearl Immortal Art and Liu Yun 9 swords. He is very dissatisfied with these items because he wanted to see the wormhole as soon as possible in order to return home. He decides to use one of these items and decides to first put a ring on his finger and realizes that it is very convenient because it doesn't even need any bag, but he remembered that the main problem now is escape. After all this, he sits down with a businesslike look and opens the book of Liu Kao 9 swords. Well, he flips through the pages and tries to find something interesting and useful in it for himself to write. The main character realized that these two books were very important, so this genius just sat down in front of these two books and began to absorb all the information into his head, just like a sponge, so he quickly studied them. In the next chapter, we see how, as a result of the fact that Liu Shuang conveyed one message, Ming Kan sees in the sky the leader and elders who flew here on important matters. and he is going to meet them. Next, the blue-haired guy meets 3 magnates of the Luyun sword sect. They stand with important faces and wait for the guy to report something to them and tell them why he called them here, hoping that it is important. We are shown a man with a thick beard who is dressed in red clothes and looks like a very serious man. His name is Xiangzi Luyun, and he is the head of the sword sect, and apparently he is not to be trifled with. We are introduced to a pretty woman with a large flower on her head and wearing pink clothes. Her name is Wei Huizu, and he is an elder of the sword sect. She seems to be a very calm person. Next, we see a man with long hair. His eyes look very tired, and how himself does not look like a very evil person. His name is Kongzi, and he is also an elder of the sword sect. After the introduction, we will see how the leader approaches the Mine Kun and asks where all the people are and wants to find out where the student is who helped them fight off the demon cultivators. Apparently, he wants to talk to him personally. Xiangzi Luyun considers this guy a real genius and wants to pass on his mantle to him. He also wants to make him the future leader of this sect, because the guy is very strong and will not allow his students to be offended. Blue-haired begins to say that Xiao Chu is only at the 4th level of key training, but he can already control magical weapons. He assumes that he was captured by a demon cultivator, so he locked him in one of the rooms. Immediately after hearing this, the seemingly strict leader of the sword sect, Xiangzi Luyun, immediately turned into a little girl and screamed at the top of his voice, calling Xiao Che a demonic cultivator because how could he use magic weapons? Elder Huihuizi says that there are restrictions in the Sutra collection. They are not allowed to enter or exit except the main entrance. So they are doing exactly the right thing. Further events return to the building in which the main character was locked. It is seen how the head of the sect knocked down the door with his foot, being armed, and is going to deal with this demon cultivator. The brave Xiao Che, like a real Sigma, was sitting and doing Muning at that moment. But as soon as these idiots arrived, they ruined everything for him. He asked them to shut up because they were interfering with his concentration. He says that for their sake, he drove powerful enemies out of their territory. But instead of repaying his kindness, they decided to slander him, calling him a demon cultivator and locking him in this room. Making a dissatisfied face, he slightly turns away from the faces of these people and says that he has never seen anyone as shameless as Ming Khan, who locked him here for a long time. Elder Jue Juezu, charging her fingers with some kind of energy, shows with all her appearance that she is serious, and right now she is going to check whether the guy is a demonic cultivator or not. The woman has already directed her beam at him, and Xiao Chia, being confident that he is not a demonic cultivator, continues to sit in his place and waits for this woman to finish her check. Then it turned out that this magic ray exposes to everyone what is stored in the guy's head. And there he sits at the computer and watches another film for adults. He is already waiting for the elder's reaction to this. The woman was surprised by this and thinks it is amazing. Apparently, she is glad that the guy is kind. And Kongzi enjoys this picture and thinks that the Acacia sect collects yin and replenishes yang. The main character breathes out a sigh of relief and says that all cartoons are lies and cannot be hidden by any pretense. Xiangzi Luyun, putting his sword directly to Xiao Che's neck, looks at him with his menacing gaze and still believes that this kind guy is a demon cultivator, which is why he wants to finish him off right now. But the presence of a sharp and large sword at his neck does not confuse the main character at all. He only smiles slightly and remains calm. Even death does not scare him. He only mocks this man. With a blade at his neck, he begins to tell them about the alleged seizure of the body. He believes that there is nothing wrong with this, and this is not even a robbery. He just got into this body and is not going to do anything bad. The old man with a black beard continues to look at this guy, holding his blade at the ready. He is surprised by the confidence of this guy, and he keeps thinking how to find out whether he is a demon or not. Our Giga Chad had already managed to get up from the floor and, pushing away the sword of the head of the sect, he says that when he came here, the owner of the body was already dead, and he just somehow got into his body. Standing up with an important look and trying to seem cool, the young guy stood with his back directly to the two elders with their leader. He also believes that his presence nearby can even be considered a kind of blessing. Turning to them with a serious look, he says that this is also good luck for their sect, because he is a person with very high strength, capable of repelling all of their enemies, helping this sect all the time. The words of the young guy surprise all these people. Apparently they understand that in fact he will be useful for their sect, so they should not sit and interrogate him, but should just leave him alone. Jueyuezi, continuing to look at this self-confident guy, understands that he is too straightforward and also very handsome. Maybe he is not even any demon and can live calmly in a sect. He tells the rest of his friends that there are rumors that if you fail to overcome the adversity, you will be able to take over the body after the army ends, and you can become a free immortal and practice again. After these words, the elders and their head begin to look at the main character in surprise, apparently expecting some important words from him. But for now, he stands silent and simply looks at them in response. Xiao looks very dissatisfied with the elders' words. He simply crosses his arms, looks away, and lets them know that he didn't say anything like that, and they all came up with it themselves. Kongzi joined the conversation and says that since the war between immortals and demons 8 years ago, much has been lost. And currently, the techniques being improved in the world are fading away, and the maximum can reach the stage of integration. After that, he thought about it and said that he had not seen a Taoist friend survive misfortune for 1,000 years. So he could not understand where the free immortal came from and considered it strange. Xiao, pretending to be surprised by something, puts his hands to his chin and says, "Why doesn't he just give them wisdom at such a critical moment, because he has the power to do it?" The crazy head again decides to take out his sharp sword and says that although it is tiring for him, it is his duty to get rid of the cultivator demon with his help. The woman comes to the poor guy's defense and tells him that if he relies on the immortal's mansion to overcome his troubles, then the outside world really just won't be able to accept it. Then, with a calm look, she tells her colleagues that she has a plan, and she immediately sees the result. From her face, you might think that the plan is really reliable, and you can trust her. However, the head of Qiangzi Luyun and the elder Kongzi begin to look at Juejue's in bewilderment. They decide to ask her what plan she is even talking about, because they were already interested, and apparently she will tell them about it. The events of the next chapter begin in the Alchemy Pavilion. We see a woman elder who says that any righteous person can improve the Tablet of Righteousness. Apparently, this is how they want to test the main character. She begins to say that demon cultivators, due to their limited skills, are very afraid of this, because no matter how high their cultivation level is, they will never be able to do this with a pill. So if the guy they suspect can refine the righteousness pill, he can prove his identity as a Sanxian. Xiao wants to know what will be done to him otherwise. But the elder and the others did not directly talk about this to the guy. As soon as Qiangzi Luyun ordered his people to line up, and they all took out their swords and began to wait for the results. After what he saw, our brown-haired man was speechless for a while. And exhaling in fear, he understood their hint that if he turned out to be a demon cultivator, then they would certainly kick his skinny ass. Next, the main character was simply locked back in the room. He stands and understands that these people only gave him 1 hour, so he should hurry up in preparing this pill, otherwise everything will be bad. Being in this room, he realizes that the original owner of the body is really useless. But his body is good? The guy considers it useless only because he cannot even remember the recipe. Having searched for a long time for the recipe, Xiao apparently could not find it. So he simply throws some kind of herb directly into the oven, being unsure whether this is even correct, because this is the only thing he could remember. Looking at the yin and yang furnace, the brown-haired man is waiting for the preparation meanwhile, considering the elders and the head to be stupid. Because considering that even the original owner did not know anything, then no one except the Sanxians will be able to refine the pill. The young guy stood in front of the furnace dissatisfied because he believed that its heat was too difficult to control and was afraid that this might ruin the process of improving the pill. Fortunately for the guy, his favorite system contacted him. She notified that she had discovered a registration place, or a forbidden level of the alchemical pavilion, and invited the guy to enter. He, realizing that everything was difficult, decided to cheat. He gladly agrees with this proposal, and after that, he understands that while he is moving to a new place, he can log into the system and open the mysterious box and get something from there. Having opened the mysterious box, he offered him a lot of Hunyuan Genkai secret pills, which are at the highest level. But at first glance, it may seem that this is not what the main character is looking for. Xiao looks dissatisfied with these pills. He simply pushed them away from him and believes that the system decided to mock him. He actually needs a pill of righteousness. And not all this. A couple of moments later, we see how the door opened, and the elders and the head entered this room. They tell Xiao that his time has already come to an end and decide to ask how his affairs went. Elder Kongzi was the first to pay attention to the stove, and continuing to look at it with displeasure, he notices black smoke coming from it and tells others that most likely no words are needed here. Everything is already clear. Apparently, the head of the sect was waiting for this moment as much as the fat man at McDonald's is waiting for his order. Having already considered the main character a cultivator of demons, he took out his sword and hit his mysterious box with it, causing all the pills to fly out. Seeing these items, Xiangzi Liuyun has already decided to get rid of this guy and is surprised that he has something like this. Xiao says that this is apparently just what they need and asks to correct him if there are any mistakes. These adults, continuing to look at these pills in surprise, immediately realize that this was an elixir of the highest quality and did not expect to see this from a guy. Zhuo Wezi realized that this was a Huayuan junkie pill. Xiao decides to pretend to be a fool and, scratching his empty head, asks them if this is really better than the righteous pill, and he himself is apparently surprised by this, because he thought that he would already be finished off. The woman comes up to him and, wrapping her arms around the gaze, begins to shake him in different directions, trying to convey to him that this pill is more than just strong. This pill is at the highest level. We are shown a map of the Fengyu continent. The elder says that in the entire continent, if there are only a handful of people who can do something like this, such people are really rare, and Xiao turns out to be very good. These people who were already going to finish off the young guy right now stood in front of him and, expressing their respect, decided to get to know him better, because apparently he will now live with them. Seeing this picture, the main character sighed with relief because his life is no longer in danger, since he managed to pass this difficult test and show himself to these people on the good side. Events are then transferred to some building in one of the rooms of which there is a throne near which 3 beautiful girls stand and apparently are waiting for someone important to give him a warm welcome. Meanwhile, in the same building, we see the main character together with the satisfied head of the sect. The man, somehow joyful, points his hand directly at the throne and asks Xiao to sit on it. Xiao listened to Xiangzi Liuyun, and apparently he really liked his proposal. He shows his thumb up, and he was very surprised by the politeness of this man. He is grateful to him for it. In the next chapter, we see people already familiar to us who hug and rejoice, because of the arrival of Xiao makes it possible for the sect to raise its head in righteous immortality, while behind them, the main character is having fun on the throne. The elder woman, after listening to her leader, looked very thoughtful and said that free immortals are infinitely close to ascending to immortality. Kongzi is already starting to make plans and suggests that the others change the name of the Liuyun sword sect to a new one, namely the Luan Immortal Sect, but it seems that they started making various plans too early. Zhuo decides to ruin everyone's good mood and says that in the ancient books, it is written that many immortals practice in the ruins of the Immortals' mansion. So unfortunately for them, Xiao will not stay here for long. However, she decides to talk about a way that will definitely force the guy to stay in their sect. She tells Xiangzi Liuyun that the guy will need to be offered to take control of the sword. The head did not like this. After listening to the elder Zhuo, the evil Xiangzi Liuyun approached her and loudly shouted no, showing with all his appearance that he was against this, apparently thinking that the guy would be better off leaving here. He begins to say that the sword family is a forbidden zone of the Liuyun sword sect. According to the rules, no one except the master can enter without permission. The man does not want to break the rules, and the woman already regrets that she even suggested it. While the old grandfather knocks on the head of his colleague, Kongzi, meanwhile, begins to talk about how demonic cultivators have invaded his mountain gate, and even the formation eye stone in front of Jian's house was destroyed. We are shown a large building, and there are a bunch of swords lying around. The elder continues to tell us that the family of swords is the place where the ancient immortal swordsmen buried their swords, and even there, apparently, immortal weapons are buried. The founder of the Liuyun sword sect spent 100 days in seclusion, just like League of Legends players usually spend their time at home. But the founder only did this to create a huge Liuyun sword sect. The sect leader tells the elders that this sect is a treasure left to them by their ancestors, so they must not let this treasure fall into the hands of others, so that the protagonist will not receive it either. Xiangzi Liuyun regrets that he does not have enough qualifications to break through some restrictions. Otherwise, the Liuyun sword sect would have long ago been renamed the Liuyun Immortal Sect. And then the grandfather thinks that if Xiao chose their sect, then could he be some kind of swordsman, and is waiting for an answer from the elders, who look directly at him thoughtfully and in surprise. They both raise their thumbs up in a satisfied manner and said in chorus the name of their elder brother Gao Ming. Apparently, this means something important. The sect leader, being slightly angry, says that if he really dares to plot against the sword family, then he is going to immediately kill him tonight, even though he may die. We are again shown the main character, who sits contentedly on his throne, and at this time he is entertained by girls. One of them is Lu Shuang. She is holding onto his shoulder. Unlike the other girls, she looks slightly dissatisfied. Next, Xiao realizes that he has been having fun with these girls for too long and understands that a couple has come for him to act. He opens the system interface with a serious face and asks her to tell her the next registration location. She asks the guy to participate in successfully logging in within 3 days. The joyful Xiao realizes that this level of the secret world is probably even more amazing and is about to take action. Meanwhile, the head of the sect and the elders came to him. They see how he continues to sit on the throne with all the comforts and tells them that they came just in time because there is a place that he wants to ask them about. After greeting him, the three say that they would like to address Xiao as their superior. They let him know that he can use all the resources of the sword sect and will not listen to announcements and instructions. The main character listened attentively to their proposal, but Liu Shuang also heard it. Shocked by the words of her head, and apparently not wanting this to happen, the smug brown-haired man asks about some caking elder. The head of the sect was apparently angered by Xiao words, and barely restraining himself so as not to kick the guy's ass, he says that it is specially designed for older people and stands quite high. Xiao is already starting to laugh and says to him the fact that meals and accommodation are included already sounds good. And the girl behind him is surprised at how external students can become second only to the master. Having finally stopped laughing, the guy with his appearance made it clear to everyone that he was very serious, because he had thought everything through well, and of course, agreed with the proposal of these people. And they were waiting for this. These three are already very happy about this. The head even wants to drink for this. And Elder Kongzi says that it is very pleasant to feel like a junior. Otherwise, he would be embarrassed to call the elders in front of the younger ones. Jueguezi reminds the main character that recently he wanted to ask them about one place. So now after all these dialogues, he can check with them about it, and they will tell him everything they know. Xiao remembers that he wanted to ask a question on this topic and asks them where the Jian family is, because he wants to go into solitude and practice for a few days. Apparently, the elders will not like it. The elders and the head listen to the words of this smug guy, and as expected, they now look very unhappy and as if upset, because they were trying to make sure the guy didn't go anywhere. Suddenly, these three forgot that they had appointed Xiao as their new boss, and the head of the Qiangzi Luyun sect ordered everyone to get into line, which made everyone armed with swords and were ready to fight, which made the guy look dissatisfied. But the main character was not the least bit afraid. Apparently, he has a plan, and confident that he will not be touched, begins to descend from his throne directly to the leader of the sect, which makes him look surprised. Xiao has already managed to stop, and the bearded man, raising his sword, tells him that any person who dares to fight against the Jianjian family will be killed, and no one will be able to do anything to them. But suddenly, for everyone, a special book falls from the main character. Apparently, he threw it to the ground on purpose. Xiao received this book from a mysterious box and is now sure that it will surprise them. The guy stands silently in front of the bearded man, and he, in turn, when he saw the book, immediately realized that it was a Juxian Jue book, and was very surprised because of this, because he didn't understand where the guy got such a book. He quickly picked it up from the floor and begins to read, after which he realizes that this is the secret book of the founding of their sect, which was lost 8,000 years ago, and now, fortunately, it has returned to his hands. The stunned man seeing this book realized that this guy is not simple, and, kneeling in front of this Giga Chad, asks him for forgiveness for his rudeness, and decides from now on to appoint Xiao as the head of the sword family. Kongzi is at a loss. In the next chapter, we see how Kongzi is very dissatisfied with the decision of the head of the sect. He is the elder who wields the sword, and is in charge of the criminal law of the sect, and he has the power to control the master. Qiangzi Luyun is already beginning to look angrily at the elder, but he continues to insist on his own and says that the Jian sect is a forbidden zone. They cannot give power over the sect to anyone just like that. Our main character calmly listened to all the claims and discontent of this elder. And of course, this genius always has a plan, and he knows how to convince him and thereby immediately calm him down. He simply threw the book on the ground. And of course it worked. Kongzi immediately turned his attention to this book of Luo Yunju and forgot about the fact that he was recently completely unhappy and wanted to finish off Xiao. Meanwhile, Xiao himself was waiting for something. He understands that Lu Yun Zhenren is the founder of the Lu Yun sword sect, and he performed the 9-sword trick. But it is said that when he died, the sword manual turned into ashes. Kneeling in front of the boy, he declares to everyone that this guy is worthy of being the boss of their sect. Apparently, he really forgot about all his grievances as soon as he saw this amazing book. Xiao just wanted to hear this, and having received recognition from the head of the sect, as well as from one of the elders, he turns to Jueguezi and asks what she thinks about this, and she stands and ponders the answer. But this crazy elder was still standing in place, and without giving an answer, she simply bit her lips. Later, she grabbed Lu Shuang and unexpectedly pushed the girl with all her strength straight towards Xiao Che. The satisfied guy caught the yellow-haired girl and begins to hug her. And the elder says that he will send his student to him to become his DOS partner. Xiao Che seems to like it. The words of this woman simply please the main character, and he, starting to smile widely, tells the elder Jue Juezi that she is acting very wisely and he is very happy with all this. Suddenly, the woman kneels in front of Xiao Che and silently begins to wait for something. With her arms stretched out in front of her, the main character most likely understands what she wants and is going to give it to her. The guy hands over that very book to her, and it's clear that she wanted exactly it. Because holding it in her hands in surprise, she begins to look at it. There are rumors that this book contains many ancient recipes for elixirs. The main character, after all this, thought sharply, he cannot understand why the members of the Qianxia sect left the Luyun sword sect. He assumes that there is some kind of story behind it all. Next, we see how the elders with their heads simply knelt down in front of this young guy, and expressing their respect to him, Qiangzi Luyun just remembers to accept the Jian family. The proud guy listened to these people and, with an arrogant look, reluctantly agrees to their request and promises to fulfill it. And the yellow-haired girl he hugs looks like he heard his words and looks like she was scared. Then the events are transferred to another place. We are shown the entrance to the Jian family and the very place where the main character found himself unconscious at the very beginning. Apparently, they all came here. They come straight to the center of this platform for some purpose. Looking at the object that is located in the very center, Xiao Che understands that the Eye of the Sword formation is Zhu Xian and clarifies this with others, waiting for their answer. Kongzi explains to the young fool that this is both the Eye of the Formation and also the entrance. The sword key of the sword family is used to create higher education, so this thing is very important. The elders and their leader stand in a row right next to the Eye of the Formation and together release 3 rays of different colors into it, intending to open a certain entrance, while the rest of the people watch this. It can be seen how the efforts of these 3 in trying to open a special entrance were crowned with success. A huge door appears right in front of them all, which has already opened, and they can all enter it. The main character is very happy that everything worked out for them. As soon as he saw this secret door, he realized that by entering directly into it, he would find himself in a new place, and thanks to this, he would be able to open his mysterious box. The brave Xiaoche decides to be the first to step into this portal. He is already about to find himself in a new place when Xiangzi Luyun tells the guy that he respectfully invites him to take responsibility for the Tomb of the Sword. Mingkai and Mingkong, watching all this process, understands that on the other side there is a secret blessed land, which can only be reached by great opportunity. So he is very jealous of Xiao Che. The guy is almost completely transferred to a new place, but Jue Juezi says that there will be a lot of inconvenience there, so it is better to let Liu Shuang come in and take care of him, and wants to know his opinion about this. The guy liked this proposal, and apparently he is planning something. He thinks that this is the same as sending a sheep straight into the mouth of a wolf and is already going to give his answer to the elder. With a swagger, he turns to her and tells them to think of this as giving young people a chance to learn, so he's going to take Liu Shuang with him right now. The elder tells the yellow-haired girl that this opportunity comes once in a lifetime, so the girl should really take advantage of it. Because there may not be another chance, Liu Shuang is already about to enter the portal. A couple of moments later, these two were transported through this portal to a new place. A bunch of swords are visible all around, and the yellow-haired woman, trying to help the guy, says that it is dangerous all around and he should follow her. And this arrogant fool tries to remind her how cool he is and asks her to call him Lord Shangqing next time. The girl was surprised by his arrogance and realized that there was no point in telling such a person anything, so she remained silent. In the next chapter, we see the two walking around this place. Lu Shuang says that the light array under the sword is a limitation, and some of them are weak, while others are strong. The leader told the yellow-haired girl that even the weakest restriction could instantly kill a golden elixir-level cultivator. That is, the swords here should not be touched. Otherwise, they could kill them instantly. But the self-confident fool apparently listened to Liu Shuang. He took one of the swords directly in his hands, and the girl does not understand what he is doing, but one might already think that the main character will come to an early end. Xiao Che explains his actions by saying that the swords are suspended in the air, and this is a little disrespectful towards Newton, so he decided to study them. The yellow-haired girl already thinks that it's all over, and they will soon die. The guy saw the girl's reaction, and he felt very funny about it. He cannot understand why she is so confident in their speedy death, and she does not understand how they are even alive, because even the leader cannot touch the sword. Next, the guy begins to pull out this sword, most likely to evaluate it in practice. Continuing to hold it in his hands, he feels an unbearable cold and does not understand what is wrong with this fucking sword. Liu Alpha! Shuang looks at this sword in great surprise and realizes that it is a perfect spiritual sword, and it seems she has already realized that their lives are not in danger yet, because even Xiao holding this sword is still alive. Suddenly, the main character raises the spiritual sword above his head towards the ski. Then some thick beam emanates from the sword and causes some lightning in the skies. Apparently, something is about to happen. The girl watching this entire apartment is already tired of constantly fearing for her life, and she says that she can no longer tolerate this and wants the main character to stop doing this as soon as possible. Liu Shuang makes it clear that there are only a few top-quality spiritual swords on the Fengyu continent, and each of these swords is kept as a sect treasure or as an important weapon for a special occasion. She looks at the joyful Xiao with a sword in his hands. Watching his courage, she begins to admire him. She is pleased to watch how he pulled this sword out of the ground with his bare hands. She thinks that this is amazing. Meanwhile, the rest of the group members are waiting near the eye of the formation. They see the very ray that came from the sword and understand that this is Chang Hong penetrating the moon. The smart elders realized that this is the birth of a spiritual sword. They guess that Xiao took out a high-quality spirit sword. It is because of it that various phenomena occur on Earth and in the sky, and it must be a top-level spirit sword. This is a rare opportunity for a sect to rise sharply. Jue Guizi understands that someone broke the eye stone so that the Jian family could not control celestial phenomena, and this process can attract people from all walks of life, so one must be on guard. Kongzi originally set up a labyrinth here. If there is no internal answer, it will be difficult for demonic cultivators to discover it. He already assumes that there is an evil spirit residing within their sect. Qiangzi Luyan says that the main priority now is the creation of a mining security formation. The elders and Min Con listen to this man and understand that they need to act because everything is serious. However, the smart woman elder realizes that the formation guarding the mountains requires the three of them to work simultaneously. But if they leave, then who can open the door of the Jian family so that Xiao and Liu Shuang can get out? Min Con attracts the attention of the others and says that although he is not talented, he is ready to take on this responsibility. And if he makes any mistakes, then he is ready to accept judgment. The head of the sect is very pleased with the blue-haired man's proposal. He agrees with him and says that he is full of sincerity. As long as he guards this place, the bearded man will feel comfortable as a teacher. The elders and the head began to fly away from this place to take care of their important affairs, while Min Con remained, looking after them. From his cunning look, one might think that he was planning something. Next, we are shown the events that take place in the Xinyang Immortal Sect. In their courtyard, there are two people who notice strange, heavenly manifestations that have not happened for 100 years. They guess that it is the birth of an ancient spiritual weapon. One of these guys, who is going to Geralt from the game The Witcher 3, he sees that this light is coming from the northwest, right where the Luyan Sword Sect is located, and apparently he will have to take some measures. Saying the name out loud, he understands that this sword family, which is going to do something that will be very disadvantageous for him, and is very tense because of this. It seems this guy is going to stop them. Later, it turned out that these are not two different guys, but one who was divided. He understands that if the sword sect locks the sword tomb, then its strength will increase sharply, and then it will not be his turn to be the leader of the righteous alliance. It is clear that this man is very serious. He understands that he needs to hurry up right now and change the sword sect to do what they are going to do, because otherwise he will not achieve his goal. A man with long hair, already about to set off towards the source of light, pronounces a spell and combines his hands with each other, intending to combine with his clone into one person. However, he begins to cough up red liquid and realizes that after being distracted for so long, he still cannot go into the integration stage. Meanwhile, a diffuse fog has formed behind him. It turns out that the man is the head of the Yanxian branch, and his name is Yan Kong. He continues to look thoughtfully at the light in the sky and realizes that he must receive this very ancient spiritual sword. This spirit sword, welded by the powerful sword of the sword family, will definitely help him break through the Shuang Kai, and then he will definitely be able to become a leader and begin to dominate the righteous alliance. Next, Yan Kong takes out a golden-colored magic stone. He clearly showed it to us and begins to enchant it with his 2 fingers of his right hand. Apparently, this will help him in the future. As a result of all this witchcraft, This serious man was able to cast the Spirit Swift Sword and undercover return spells on this stone. After all this, the magic stone in his hands begins to blink. He looks thoughtfully at the source of light and says that a certain brother of his has been dozing for hundreds of years, so it's time for him to go home. At the beginning of the next chapter, we are again shown a place where there are a bunch of swords floating above the ground. Apparently, the upcoming events will take place right here and now. The main character, Xiao puts the sword back in his holster and coolly hands it over to Liu Shuang. He is going to give it to her because in his opinion, she really liked this sword. You can see from the outside how the brown-haired man gives the yellow-haired beauty a sword, and she simply cannot believe that this romantic right now wants to give her the best sword and seems to be embarrassed to take it. Seeing the guy's intentions, the girl realizes that this is apparently an advantage of him being her Taoist companion. She finds it unsurprising that her teacher's eyes turned red with envy last time. Liu Shuang already seems to be a little sad. She thinks that if she accepts this, then perhaps it means that she agrees to practice paired cultivation with Xiao, and already thinks that she will have to do this with him. In the end, because of this, he gritted his teeth. This Xiangqing did a good service in protecting the sect. He still took the body of her younger brother. She still doesn't understand how she can still practice double cultivation with him. Liu Shuang kneels in front of the main character and says that she has an ordinary physique and will not be able to help his development, so let her take this sword back and give it to another monk. Xiao Yuche is very unhappy about this. Looking at her expression, she was happy at first, and then became sad. He realized that because he is in her brother's body, he believes that if such people are around him, then they can stab you in the back. He turns away from the girl and makes it clear that he is not going to engage in double cultivation because he is not a vulgar person. He sees that she likes the sword. That's why he gave it. He doesn't like that he is accused for no reason. The girl's eyes were filled with some kind of pity. She looks at the main character and apparently already understood his true intentions. He just wanted to give this sword as a gift, and she thought about it incorrectly. Liu Shuang is apparently already going to take this sword for herself. She, holding it in her hands, understands how cold it is. He understands that this sword completely matches her, and if she takes it, her strength will increase significantly. However, she refused this sword right now and thinks that it will be a little awkward to accept it now. Apparently, she already regrets what she told the guy, and now she wants to apologize and accept the gift. But while the girl was thinking about this, someone quietly approached her and rudely took her sword. That person says that there is no need to fight for this sword. This spiritual sword already has its place. It turned out that this is Yan Kong, who managed to arrive as he wanted. Our heroes stand in front of him and do not understand why he came here. And he is a guy with a sword who says that he arrived here on the orders of his master. About to take the sword out of its holster, he looks at it with a malicious smile and says that he expected to see a strong sword, but was surprised to find that this sword is actually of the highest quality. Then, while that guy is studying the sword, the main character just silently looks at him and says that his clothes look very familiar to him, and he is trying to remember who this person is. We are shown a scene that is a memory of the main character, where we can see how this bad guy with a creepy smile on his face pushes Xiao. At the same moment, his life came to an end. Our brown-haired man was immediately seized by panic. After he realized who this person really was, he realized that the original owner of his body was killed by his ghost brother, Yan Kong. While Yan Kong is still busy examining the Zanpakuto, Xiao turns to Liu Shuang and hints at something with a wink using Morse code. She tries to understand what he means. The main character continues to try to convey his thought to this girl, and she looks at him and apparently is still trying to understand what this handsome young man means. Yan Kong examined this sword properly, and then he suddenly wanted to test the strength and sharpness of this sword. Turning to the yellow-haired one, he asks to help him with this, but she does not understand how exactly she can help. Suddenly, without any further words, that this villain points his sword directly towards Liu Shuang, about to deliver his mighty blow. Xiao managed to react to this and is already about to take action. The only thing he was able to do was push his girlfriend away and stand under the blow of this sword. You can see how it pierced his chest, and red liquid was already starting to flow from there, but the girl was saved for now. Yellow-haired had already realized that her younger brother had just helped her, but after seeing how he himself fell under the blow of this villain's sword, she begins to worry about her savior and thinks that everything will end badly for him. Yan Kong took his sword out of his body, and the exhausted Xiao falls into the girl's embrace, the villain watching. This says that he actually wanted to kill Liu Shuang and then somehow deal with him himself. But this will also do. They both look at this villain, and the girl decides to ask Yan Kong why he is doing all this. And Xiao says that she does not understand that this guy is a real rat, and it was he who killed her younger brother along with the formation stone. Hearing this, the blue-haired man begins to laugh loudly and confirm this, saying that he did it all. He is also the younger brother of the head of the Yang Sect, but has been hiding in the sword sect for hundreds of years. They listen to the bad guy and now watch him laugh at the fact that he fooled them for a long time. The girl has already realized that her younger brother was killed by him, and it turns out that she misunderstood her master Shangqing. Having started coughing up blood, the main character begins to fall without strength and believes that everything is already over because Yan Kongo has already said everything that cannot be said. Apparently, this is because he feels his impunity. He falls straight into Liu Shuang's chest, and she begins to cry and begins to think the guy is stupid because she is obviously no longer his sister, so why does he risk his life to save her? She cannot understand. The guy, with the last of his strength, raising his gaze into her eyes, says that to die under the peonies means to become a ghost. He asks his sister not to be sad, because this is all according to his will. He himself decided to do so. Xiao tells her not to think that he wants to block this sword. He was only pushed by the remaining emotional restraint of the original owner of the body. Liu Shuang tells him that he is a worthy boss of Shangxiang. He only loves an ordinary woman like her. Looking at the guy and remembering his actions, she begins to consider herself ignorant. But after a couple of moments, the girl decides to take everything into her own hands and, taking the guy by the hand, asks him not to worry about all this. She makes it clear that right now she will do everything herself. A transformation occurs and she has a sword in her hands. Taking out her sword, the serious-minded Liu Shuang begins to approach Yan Kong with the intention of taking revenge on him. She goes to him, very confident in her victory, and looks him straight in the eyes, instilling fear in him. In the next chapter, you can see how Yan Kong noticed that the girl wants to take revenge on him, but does not understand his self-confidence, because she is only at the middle stage of building the foundation, and he is in the alley of the golden elixir. But of course, Liu Shuang must have some kind of plan. After listening to him, she simply begins to laugh and walk towards her enemy because she knows that she will definitely defeat him. Seeing what this yellow-haired girl is doing, Yan Kong already thinks that she is crazy and just stands there and waits for her further actions. Apparently, he has already begun to doubt his victory. She made him understand that all the restrictions in this place had been activated, so even if the head of the sect came here in person, even he would simply die and would not be able to really do anything to anyone. Suddenly, all the swords in this area begin to fly into the air and hover over these people. The villain looks at the swords and no longer knows what to do, because only recently he was confident of his victory. Liu Shuang is already going to finish off this bad guy along with the Xiao, whom he killed in the past. Thus, she is going to take revenge for the murder of her younger brother, putting an end to all his atrocities. All these swords are already beginning to surround the blue-haired man. He is ready to take on this difficult battle and, apparently thinking that he will really come to an end, is going to drag this girl into the grave with him. The girl stands and continues to raise her swords into the air to fight the enemy. Meanwhile, with her eyes closed, she tells him that even if the afterlife exists, then Liu Shuang will definitely send him there. Suddenly, and unexpectedly for the yellow-haired one, the main character approaches her, hugging her, and she looks at him and asks him to step aside so that he does not interfere with her, because she is busy with important matters. But he wants to tell her something important. She decides, of course, to listen to this guy, and he began to whisper in her ear that these swords will not pierce him, so he can escape while he keeps him here. And then Liu Shuang, remembering something, suddenly realized that Xiao could pull out the spiritual sword from under the restrictions with his bare hands, because he was truly immune to any restrictions, and would definitely be able to do this. Then, apparently, these two decide to implement some kind of cunning plan of theirs, and you can see how they, riding the sword, begin to fly away from the villain. The main character is in the arms of a girl, and Yan Kong, seeing them, screams so that they do not run away, while Yan Kong was watching the fleeing heroes. Unexpectedly, one of the sharp swords flew up to him and scratched his face, leaving a very deep abrasion on it, after which the blue-haired man became angry. Then he seemed to have managed to change his clothes. He says that he has the armor of the red remnant of immortality, which calmly protects his body, even if swords fly all over the sky. Then what can they do to him? It can be seen that he is really very serious. Dressed in his red armor, he addresses Lord Shangqing and his younger sister, Liu Shuas, saying that he has told all the secrets and is going to finish them off right now. Next, we see a girl with the main character. She flew with him to the sacrificial platform with a sword, so now they are safe and can temporarily rest after everything that happened. Dissatisfied, Xiao Kuo still continues to sit in Liu Shuang's arms and decides to tell her that if she stops protecting him, then everything could end very badly for him. So he doesn't want her to leave him. But the girl is still trying to calm the guy down. She reminds him that they are right on the sacrificial platform with a sword, so at the moment their lives are not in danger. As a result, he touches this ground with his feet and convinces him that it is actually safe and is surprised that they got here somehow quickly. He can finally calm down and relax. From the expression on the face of Xiao Qiao, who is hugging Liu Shuang, one can understand that he is getting incredible pleasure. But it is not yet clear from what exactly, from a sense of security, or from the big cores of this girl. The guy continues to hug the girl with pleasure, and she says that the energy of this Yang Kong thief's sword destroyed all his internal organs. He probably won't last even half an hour, so he needs urgent help. Liu Shuang then begins to cry, and she felt very sad. Turning to the guy she regrets, and says that it was all his fault that he received a blow from the sword, which is why he got all the trouble. The system interface opens in front of the main character, which says that there are still 5 meters left to the registration point of the secret level of the Tomb Sword. He saw this message and realized that he needed to move on. Leaning on Liu Shuang, Xiao Qiao asks her to help him up the steps. The girl believes that, as expected from a Sanxian, he even has to choose a place to die, unlike ordinary people who die anywhere. Meanwhile, relying on a strong girl, the main character was somehow able to climb the steps with her to the entrance to the buildings. The system notified that they had approached the registration point for the secret level fencer, and the guy was about to enter. A mysterious box appeared in front of him. Liu Shuang doesn't understand where it came from, suggesting that it came from a cosmic ring, and the guy looks somehow dissatisfied. The main character is very excited. He really wants something very useful to fall out of this box, and is already going to start getting some items out of there, because this very moment has come. Having started to take things out of the mysterious box, to his misfortune, he discovered from the very beginning some kind of rusty sword, and looking very dissatisfied, begins to slowly pull it out. Realizing that this is still a rusty sword that is unnecessary in his opinion, he becomes very angry and begins to swear with various bad words, believing that the mysterious box could have given him something better, while he shows his middle finger. He simply threw this sword to the ground, from which the sword itself is in shock. The guy still cannot understand how the mysterious box with AliExpress could give him such a thing. And Liu Shuang is in shock from his behavior. Then, while the guy was in his rage, the girl decided to look into this box herself. She took out a bottle of Xiao Den from it, and apparently this is medicine. She told Xiao Che about this happiness, and says that he is now saved. The yellow-haired girl immediately, without much thought, puts the pill directly into Xiao Che's mouth. He thinks that taking medicine at random is not a good idea, and she asks him to eat it quickly because it is an elixir. The guy continues to insist on his own and says that taking random medications can lead to his death. And the smart yellow-haired woman explains that the ancient elixir Da Huangdan resurrects the dead, strengthens the body, and prolongs life for thousands of years. Pouring 17 pills into his hand, Liu Shuang talks about how the Yang Sect uses this medicine as a treasure to suppress the sect. Just one pill is enough to establish a sect that is one of the 5 sects of the righteous path. The guy unexpectedly comes up to her from behind and asks to show what she is doing there. Looking at the grains in her hands, he asks if the medicine has any side effects. Otherwise, he gets hot. As a result, this fool, realizing that there is no one nearby, begins to harass Liu Shuang by touching her on different parts of the body, which of course she is not happy about, and most likely will not tolerate such treatment. Into the next chapter, we see Liu Shuang, who looks very sad. She doesn't like the behavior of the main character, but at the same time, she doesn't want to harm him too much or beat him in any way, and she thinks what can be done? But you can see how the guy doesn't think about stopping at all. He continues to touch, and she just asks him to remove his hands because they are very hot, but the guy doesn't care. He doesn't seem to hear. In the end, the girl got tired of enduring the harassment of this guy. She told him that he had already gone too far and gave him a powerful slap in the face. It is clear from Xiao Che that he did not expect such a blow. After the blow, Xiao Che lay down on the ground and began to glow. Liu Shuang, seeing this, understands that the power contained in the Great Return Pill is too powerful. The protagonist's body cannot stand it and will explode right now. The pretty girl clenched her teeth and realized that the only way to save this guy now was to practice double cultivation. Apparently, she would have to start already. The yellow-haired girl remembered how this guy recently saved her life by sacrificing his own. She now looks straight at him and really wants to repay him in kind, going to save him like a real sister. But later, you can see some awkwardness in her eyes. She doesn't understand how she will look into his eyes the next time after this. She thinks that the guy might consider her too careless. But while she was in her thoughts, the guy had already decided to start acting. He tapped her on the shoulder, thereby attracting her attention. And as soon as she turned to him, he immediately began to kiss her on the lips. Next, we see how this couple has already taken a special pose and is about to begin the practice of double cultivation. The system notifies that after taking the Dahuan Dan, the guy's strength will increase by 100. And also, after this process, the guy's body has improved. 3 hours later, we return to Yan Kong, who, thanks to his red heavenly jar immortality armor passed down to him from his ancestors, managed to survive the ambush and get out of here alive. He believes that after a long time, this free immortal should already be dead, so he is now considered an immortal. He also thinks that only he and his younger sister are left in the Jian family. Blue-haired remembers Lu Shuang and considers her the most beautiful woman in the network. He is already making various plans for her and says that on weekdays, in order to seem like a decent person, he will not even dare to look at her. But after some time, approaching the main character along with the yellow-haired woman, he notices that the two of them are already having fun. He is shocked that Xiao did not die and now believes that he really deserves to be the boss of Zhenxiang. Noticing him, the girl becomes slightly embarrassed, and this Sigma gets up from the ground and tells Yan Kong that he should leave here. The guy does not understand why he should come here and risk his life. Standing in front of them, the villain takes out his sword and says that the main character is only at the 4th level of key training, and the sister is at the middle stage of building the foundation, so the two of them are not enough to stop him. Blue-haired thought that they did not notice the joke in his hands. He took off and headed towards them and told them that now he was holding the best spiritual sword in his hands and was going to finish them off. However, the main character is not going to give up so easily and tells the enemy that the art of killing immortals is the most advanced technique of the Luyun sword sect. And when they reach the peak, they will become true immortals. Apparently, Xiao decides to test this technique on Yan Kong and begins to flash bright yellow. With his appearance, he shows the enemy that he will fight back and will not be such an easy prey. While the main character stood in place silently, Yan Kong had already managed to get closer to him and was already striking with his spiritual sword. And Liu Shuang warned the guy about this and asked him to be careful. Next, we are shown the blue-haired man, who right now is in shock from something. Apparently, something happened that surprised him very much, and he did not expect to see this. He already thinks that he can lose in this battle.
It turned out that Xiao could catch the spiritual sword with his bare hands. The villain noticed then that the main character, who was at the Kui purification stage, had a blow equal in strength to the golden elixir stage.
The satisfied guy claps his hands and says that this is the immortal killing technique plus the 3 rotation 9 Yana Vajra body. He looks so happy because it did not disappoint him. Taking advantage of such a glorious moment, while Yan Kong was very distracted by the main character, Liu Shuang, calling this idiot a traitor, swung her sharp sword and was about to strike a fatal blow. However, after striking directly at the shoulder of her enemy, the yellow-haired woman discovers that her sword has broken and is very surprised by this. Later, she realizes that he is wearing magic armor. Xiao looks like he knew what was about to happen.
Being serious for a while, the blue-haired one, seeing how the girl's sword broke and paying attention to her face, begins to laugh hard and says that he is wearing the truly immortal armor of the ancestors of the Yang Sect.
Having laughed a lot, this bad guy got tired of holding his spiritual sword between the main character's 2 fingers. And with a sharp movement, taking it out, he says that he is only wearing half of the magic armor, but it already protects perfectly. Having finally drawn his sword, he stands proudly in front of the 2 characters and tells them that until they obtain the immortal weapon, they should not even think about breaking his armor. Now that Liu Shuang understands that Yan Kong was able to escape the restriction with the help of his magic armor, the main character just looks at the traitor and really wants to kick his ass, while the traitor himself starts laughing again. But unexpectedly for everyone, the rusty sword that Xiao took out earlier from his mysterious box suddenly makes itself known and begins to fly straight into the traitor's chest while he still doesn't notice anything. The bad guy, in between laughter, turns his attention to this very sword and seems to have already realized that this is an immortal weapon. But he could not dodge it, and the sword pierced him right through. The main character has simply stands still and watches this together with the girl, the traitor, already defeated, lies on the ground, and the sword near the blow returns back to its true owner. The sword stops right in front of them, apparently wants to be praised. Xiao realized that this is the sword that the mysterious box gave him. Liu Shuang simply cannot believe that this sword is an immortal weapon. After thinking for a long time, the girl could not determine it, and asks the main character whether this seemingly rusty, unremarkable sword can be an immortal weapon, and is waiting for an answer from him. Next, we see a badly wounded villain who lies behind the ground bleeding red liquid. He also cannot believe that some rusty sword could do this to him. Apparently, he was too self-confident. Meanwhile, the Chinese ChatGPT increased the guy's physical strength by 1,000 points. For killing a monk at the stage of the golden elixir, she notifies that to increase the 9 Yang Vajra body to the 4th level, another 9,000 points are required. In the next chapter, we see how the guy took this rusty sword in his hands. And the system says that this is the Tianqi's Sword of Immortality. The guy already realizes that his mysterious box is capable of giving magic weapons and elixirs. He begins to read in the system interface that the 9 Yan Vajra body has 9 coils, and he can improve it by collecting enough bodies. The upgraded body is infinitely strengthener, like a monk purifying the body. The system shows the main character a certain table in which there are different pictures with text explaining something. For example, here you can see the different stages of the body from the lowest to the highest. Xiao then begins to smile slyly, realizing that he now has a 3-rotation 9 Yang Vajra body, and his strength is equivalent to that of the golden elixir, so he is able to kick the butts of many villains. Looking at the next information from the system, that the stronger his body, the more energy it can hold, he understands that he can not only train his body, but also develop his Qi. The boy realized that improving the body and cultivating Qi is equivalent to improving both internal and external. He now considers himself the smartest on planet Earth. Xiao is already starting to make some plans. He thinks that if he can reach the 9th level of Qi purification, he will be able to fight with the gray-haired guy next door and definitely defeat him. He thinks that he is immune to restrictions due to the 9-shaped, diamond-shaped body, and clarifies this with the system. She says that this is not so. The restriction is based on the energy of the earth and sky, and he is immune because of a special soul. Xiao already thinks that this is some kind of legendary card bug. He didn't expect that his physique could have good qualities, and Liu Shuang is at a loss why he is looking straight at her like that. She, turning away from Xiao, asks him to be more respectful, because she did it only to save him. Now that everything is over, she asks him to forget about everything that happened today. The guy put his hand to his heart and doesn't understand how the yellow-haired woman could think such a thing about him. He very honestly tells her that he respects her very much and in no way considers her vulgar.
Next, the main character approaches the corpse of the evil traitor. It is going to take from him what this guy took from them in the past, namely a strong spiritual sword. Apparently, Xiao wants to give this sword to the girl.
Taking the sword from the dead villain, the brown-haired man throws this sword directly into the hands of the yellow-haired woman and says that since her sword is broken, then she should take this one as an apology for past events. Liu Shuang happily accepts this spiritual sword, and making a pitiful face, does not understand how a guy can be so kind. Because she allegedly treated him poorly, she is already beginning to think that she is going too far. The yellow-haired girl looks at the guy with surprised eyes and asks her about the compliments that he previously gave her. She just can't understand whether he really thinks she's so beautiful. But the guy still offers to give a name to her new sword and suggests calling it the Liu Shuang sword. She thanks Mr. Shangqing for this new sword. Meanwhile, Xiao removes the armor from the villain. Further, having removed this armor, the guy cannot believe that this is the armor of immortality. Because in his mind, it should look different and believes that it may turn out to be very useless at the moment. However, this genius begins to smile creepily and slyly, believing that he has an idea. You can see how he begins to put this armor right into the mysterious box, and it is not clear what is about to happen. After he stuffed this suit, the Chinese ChatGPT asked the guy to log in to get a new item from the box. The guy, of course, heard the system and is going to do this to get the item. Having opened this mysterious box, he discovers in it new, fresh, and shining armor, which he is happily looking at right now and is going to try it on himself. After putting them on, the system says that this is the Xilin Mingguang armor, and it was left by the ancient gods. It is made of unicorn tendons and black iron of the magic mountains. He is immune to all magical attacks and others. Liu Shuang noticed a handsome and brutal guy in new shining armor. She is already looking at him with loving eyes and understands that this man fascinates her. Apparently, she already wants children from him. Looking at this armor, the yellow-haired girl realized that this was the armor of immortality and continued to enjoy the guy's appearance. She realized that if Lord Shangqing wanted, he could easily destroy the sword and armor of the immortal. The guy was very pleased with the fact that this armor is immune to all magical attacks. because then until he provokes the monks who left the body, his body will be invincible against weaker opponents. The main character that has already taken off his armor and is starting to think that having jade is a crime. He heard that in the world of cultivation, people often kill each other for treasure, so he should be careful. Then the events are transferred to Yangshian men, where a guy from this palace sits and holds in his hands a magic stone, which has already broken into 2 parts, and he, of course, understands that this means that something bad happened. Seeing this, he cannot believe it because his brother's life stone cannot be broken in his opinion, since it breaks only when he dies, and he cannot die because of his immortal armor. But later, this villain realized that everything was very serious, and his brother was actually dead. He was just furious, and because of this, he hit the table. Apparently, he was already going to start building a plan for revenge. Next, we see how, having noticed the man's rage, an orange-haired boy flies up to him and asks what happened. By the way, he is the son of the head of the Yangshian sect, named Yang Shisan. The gray-haired man tells his son that his uncle Yankong was killed. He should immediately take the people to the Liu Yun sword sect and ask them for an explanation. They should return his body, even if they have to start a war. But that he forgot about his brother and understands that it would be better for them to return the heavenly remnant of the immortal armor. So he tells his son about this so that he also knows about the most important goal. He shows a special gesture with his hands and kneels in front of the man, showing his respect, and like a true obedient son, he tells his father that he heard him and will definitely fulfill his request. The orange-haired man tells one of the people in the courtyard to inform the 4 Thunder and Lightning Fengyun divisions, each of which has 200 elite disciples. About this, apparently he is very serious. The muscular guy tells the guy that he is going to do the task given to him by his own father right now and asks him to follow him to the Luyun sword sect right now. At the beginning of the next chapter, we see how Yan Shisan approached 2 elders with the head who were standing near the portal and already told them that Yankong is a member of the Yangshin sect family. Orange Hair says that he ran away from home more than 100 years ago and joined their Liu Yun sword sect. He, as the head disciple, threw away his karma and devoted himself to his responsibilities and followed his goals. However, now that his life stone has been destroyed, his identity must have been revealed, and he was destroyed by members of the sword sect. The orange-haired man apparently only wants to know who exactly was involved in this.
Xiang Ziluyan once again convinces that this guy must be the boss of Xianxiang because he managed to defeat such a strong enemy. And meanwhile, the elders understand how bad a person Yankong was.
Unexpectedly for the members of the sword sect, while they were thinking about everything, 4 squads of elite fighters appeared behind Yang Shisan, and the orange-haired man had already ordered them to destroy the sword sect. The elders apparently understand that they will have to take an unequal battle. Yang Shisan, addressing the head of the sect, says that their sect can kill all his people, so he asks to immediately hand over the killer of Yankong to him. Otherwise, they are going to attack them all. However, the bearded leader turned out to be not a weak man, and he did not give up the killer. He just, without further ado, immediately ordered his students to get into battle formation to repel their enemies. Next, you can see how the students of the sword sect built and raised their swords. They are like 300 Spartans. Despite their small number, they are going to repel the enemy, whose army is several times larger. However, the woman elder Jua Juezi was not satisfied with the decision of her head, and she was very surprised by his answer. It is clear how scared she was. And turning to him, asks him to calm down, because they are no match for the Yangxian sect. The smart Kongzi elder believes that Yan Shisan is just the vanguard of Yankong. Once the 28 elders of Yan Xianmen Fengyun Leiden arrive, the sword sect will definitely be able to cope with the threat. The bearded man says that Yankong was just an internal ghost. Xiao Shangxing only finished him off to restore order, so in his opinion, there is nothing wrong with this. Moreover, he is kind to their sect. In addition, the sword sect has an immortal killing sword formation, so that they don't be afraid of their developing sect. Judging by the orange-haired man's expression, he doesn't care about this old man's words and knows what he's doing. He just starts laughing very loudly in response, showing his confidence. He believes that there is something in the Jushin sword formation, but this is not enough to stop their strong sect. Looking at the sword sect warriors, Yang Shisan said that even though they practice swords, they do not have many worthy spiritual swords. The inner disciples use ordinary level swords and are very weak because of this. Next, he looks at the leader of the Chiangzi sect and decides to look at his sword too. He says that even his sword is just a mid-level spirit sword and nothing more, so it is also very weak. And in his Yan Xian sect, there are 28 middle-level spirit swords and 7 high-level swords, the Kong Mughal sword that his father used, and even more various swords that belong to the high level. He believes that only with the help of a high-grade Zanpakudo, he can more than defeat their immortal death sword formation. It can be seen that this orange-haired man is very determined. The elders are already angry. Kongzi says that the gap in their strength is too great, so there is no chance of victory. Juejuezi says that she did not think that the Yang Sect would be so rich, and Xiangzi Liuyun already thinks that they will be destroyed. But then the attention of all the people around was attracted by someone's voice coming from the portal, which is a certain entrance. This voice spoke about some broken swords, considering that they would not be able to show off. Yansha-san, like everyone else, heard a voice coming from the portal and is already about to meet this person. He points his sword at the portal and asks this person to show up and tell him about himself. Suddenly, for this loser, a strong spiritual sword flies out of the portal, which flies straight at the orange-haired man. This sword simply destroyed the weapon of this villain, which makes him surprised, and apparently it's clear who is about to come out of the portal. Orange-haired cannot believe that this sword could cut his weapon in half, and Kongzi, who now has hope, is so very surprised by this event and understands that they will all be saved now. Yang Shisan continues to watch the sword flying near him and already assumes that this may be the best spiritual sword that has just been born and already thinks that he has no chance in battle against such a thing. Next, you can see how the orange-haired man grabs the spiritual sword right in the air and already thinks that he will become the most powerful with this thing. And the Kongzi elder seems to be trying to take it away from him. However, Yang Shisan's happiness did not last very long. A hand soon crawls out of the portal, and later Liu Shuang herself, who managed to pull this sword back to herself, asks everyone to stop fighting and says that the sword was given to her by Xiao Che. The orange-haired villain began to smile and pretend to be a good person. With a sweet look, he asks Liu Shuang to give him this sword, and then he will decide not to fight her sect at all, and will leave everyone alone. This cunning man has already extended his hand to her and says that she should put the general situation first and not destroy the entire sect because of her selfishness. The girl has already thought about his words and is about to say something. But in the meantime, they are again interrupted by a voice directly from the portal, which says that he will have to come out of solitude right now. People paying attention and starting to look directly at the portal or see an unknown figure there, behind whom there is a bunch of swords. The elders, along with the head of the sect, also paid attention to this figure. They all worship her, saluting her and congratulating her on her success. And the figure stands and listens to them, without saying anything in particular. Yansha-san cannot understand what is happening now. He does not understand who is making such a majestic appearance, because even the elders of the sect and the head of the sword sect himself want to salute him and seem to respect him very much. It turned out that this figure is the main character, Xiao Che himself. He comes out of the portal with a proud look, and being serious, he understands that people from the Yang Sect have come to cause trouble, but they will now end up with them. Coming out of the portal, the main character turns to the orange-haired one, asking if he needs a sword, and he, just waving his hands in different directions, says that he thought he was a great man, but turned out to be a monk of Qi cultivation. The orange-haired man makes it clear to the main character that he is right. It is he who wants to get this strong spiritual sword and repair it so that even Qiangzi himself will not be able to hold it. These are all his words. Xiao Che listened to him and makes it clear to the joyful young guy that he is going to do this for him and will definitely give him a sword. While the brown-haired man smiles slyly and apparently decides to do something different. Suddenly, for the villain, several sharp swords begin to emerge from the portal behind the main character. The brown-haired man makes fun of Yang Shisan, telling him that he came up and took one of them if he has the courage. In the next chapter, we see how dozens or even hundreds of swords have already flown out of the portal towards the orange-haired man. Everyone is watching this from the side, and they are wondering what will happen now. The elders and the chief watching this realize that these are top-quality swords. Probably this is the largest event on the Fengyue continent since the war between immortals and demons 8,000 years ago. The orange-haired man, watching 100 swords of the highest quality fly at him, realizes that there are actually too many of them and he definitely won't be able to cope alone, so he decides to call one of his comrades for help. And then, fortunately for him, you can see his father in the sky, who is rushing to the aid of his beloved son right on some kind of sword. The father, even in such a situation, remains completely calm. Because he knows what to do, the father decides to launch the sword on which he flew straight towards his son. This sword lands right in front of Yang Shisan and sticks right into the stone ground. The orange-haired man is already thinking about how this can help him. Suddenly, this same sword begins to glow with some kind of bright light, and later, you can see how several swords that fly straight at the orange-haired man are about to crash into a certain dome that was formed for protection. You can see how the swords that were flying straight at the bad guy right now crashed into this very yellow dome, which took all this blow, and Yang Sect, who was already saying goodbye to his life, understands that he was saved. The father approaches his son and, turning to the main character, asks for forgiveness for such a sudden appearance. With his sword, he summoned a huge magical dome, which took on all the magical power of the swords. Xiao tells this old man that he is ready to accept it, since he asked him to do it. Because this guy is not some kind of evil, he is ready to forgive any kind person. The man became interested in what he wanted. The brown-haired man begins to tell the man about the actions of his son. He says that the boy is disrespectful to Xiangzi, and if he slaps him twice, he will stop. The orange-haired man looks angry. Of course, the father slapped his son because Xiangzi is his uncle, so he should treat him with respect, and by his actions, he is committing crimes against his boss. Having given another slap to the little child, the evil father says that he asked him to make amends, but he decided to conduct an investigation into the death of Yan Kong on his own. He simply did the opposite and angered him. The orange-haired little boy is already starting to cry because of the shame that he is now experiencing on himself. He tries to turn to his dad and says that he clearly wanted him to do something, but he did not have time to finish when he was interrupted. At the same moment, the evil old man hits this bad guy again, and as if this time even harder, at the moment, he is not going to give his son the right to speak, so let him be silent and listen. The main character is pleased with this whole picture and believes that if they lend him a few more swords, they will be able to imitate the appearance of the 9th move called the 10,000 Swords of Kaozong. After all this, the guy exhales with relief. In his opinion, if he holds on a little longer, he will get stuck in the Bengbu. A couple of moments later, the father and his son left this place, from which the field that held the pile of swords disappeared, and because of this, all these swords fell straight to the ground, but did not hurt anyone at all. Next, events move to the Yang Sect. Xiao tells the students that there are flying swords everywhere, and they can take any of them depending on their level of cultivation. They are very happy that he is sharing with them. The students of the sect begin to happily select various swords for themselves. One of them wants the best spiritual sword, and the other dissuades him from this. The girl behind does not understand what to fight for, because there are many swords here, and there is enough for everyone. Next, we are shown the adventures of a father and his son. The orange-haired one says that he is very jealous that this ordinary student received a full-fledged spiritual sword, just like him. That is, the leader's son. The father says that because of this, his place as a leader is in danger. We are again shown the leader of the Xiangzi sect, who right now apparently is seeing off 2 of his armed disciples on some journey and actually looks very pleased right now. He says that there are 18 top-level spirit swords and countless mid-level spirit swords, and all this simply cannot but please this bearded man. A man with long hair and crescents on his forehead says that he guessed correctly. The Jian family is really as rich as the whole city, and this surprises him very much. But at the same time, he doesn't like it. The head of the sect is dissatisfied with the emotions of that man. He asks the Lord to bless his sword sect, as well as himself, and apparently says all this out of spite to that man from another sect, to see his reaction. But while Xiangzi Luyun was praying, he realized that his sect was flourishing so much, not because of God's blessing, but only thanks to the power of Lord Xiangqing, who had been helping them all this time. The man in the red uniform bows to the main character, who stands proudly in front of him. Xiangzi Luyun thanks this young guy for the sword that he is going to give him right now. The brown-haired man makes it clear that all the swords belong to the Sword Clan. They are a kind of heredity of the sect, and now they have simply been returned to the original owners. The head of the sect believes that if not for this guy, no one would have been able to pull out the sword for another 1,000 years. We see a crowd of students of the sect, each of whom has already managed to choose a suitable sword for themselves. Provided by the main character, they all look very joyful and thank the brown-haired man for these swords. Meanwhile, father and son, Yang Sect, are watching the satisfied protagonist. They understand that this man is not afraid even of the restrictions of the Jian family. Ignores the Tiankang immortality armor. They do not understand how he can be so strong. The man with the Xiao with the hot mustache understands that now that the sword sect has received the help and blessing of the spirit sword, its growth cannot be stopped, and they will become stronger and stronger, so they need to take action. The father wants to ask for forgiveness from the orange-haired son, and says that in the future, he will definitely repay him for today's humiliation. He just had to do it. The guy hopes that the forgiveness will be very sincere. Approaching Xiao, Yang Sect asks for forgiveness for today's actions. He also wants to return his uncle's family status out of filial piety and allow him to return to his ancestors' grave and rest in peace. Brave Xiao, without much conversation, simply throws Yan Kong's body behind the ground, which shocks these two people. He says that this guy colluded with demon cultivators to cause chaos, so they had to kill him on the spot. Next, they begin to examine the body of their relative, in the hope of finding elements of immortal armor there. But to their regret, apart from his abs, they do not find anything more valuable. The red-haired man asks Xiao where the Tiankuak immortality armor handed down to him from their ancestors is. He doesn't understand why his uncle is wearing only unnecessary items of clothing and is waiting for an explanation from the brown-haired man. The proud protagonist replies that his uniform was most likely torn during the battle, and Yang Sect is annoyed by the arrogance of this guy, who is only at the stage of ki purification, and makes his dissatisfaction with the Xiao clear. The father of this guy, who has already taken his brother's body, is about to leave, asking his son to shut up and not say anything unnecessary, because at the moment, they are not opponents for this brown-haired guy. The son wants to say something to his father, but he, in turn, simply interrupts him and does not allow him to do this. He only asked him not to say anything more, because Yan Kong entered into an agreement with the demon cultivators, so he deserves it. Carrying the corpse of his brother, he mentally seems to be talking to him. He promises that his death will not be in vain, and he will definitely avenge him by finishing off the Sword Sect and Xiao himself. Next, the orange-haired fool turns to someone and promises to talk to this person about immortality in a month. If he has the courage, then he can come and see what he will do with him. In the next chapter, the sect leader warns the guy that Yang Sect hates him, so he should be careful in the future, but Xiao is not afraid of the redhead. He sees the hypocrisy of his father, and this will not lead to anything good. Taking advantage of the moment, the brown-haired man turns to the leader of the sect and decides to clarify with him what the theory of immortality is, because he is very interested and is already waiting for an answer from an adult. He says that competitions are held between the young generations of the Righteous Alliance sects to choose the strongest and appoint him as the chosen one. And Kaido is a spiritual weapon personally blessed by 5 masters. The guy immediately became thoughtful and heard an explanation from Qiangzi Liu Yun. He thought that this was a national youth championship in Wushu, and he was not ready to expect anything more serious from this. The brown-haired man asked about the 5 main sects. The wise-bearded man explains about them and says that there are the Yang Sect, the Liu Yun Sword, and the immortal Zhenwu dynasty, as well as the Yanxian Sect and the Wingxiang Sect, respectively. We are shown 5 different icons. Apparently, each of them belongs to a sect and is a very important logo for them. The serious Xiao has another new question. He doesn't understand why, of all the 5 sects, only the Liu Yun Sword sect does not have the word immortal, and is trying to find out why this is so from the sage next to him. The elders came up. Juejuitsi says that the ancestors of other sects ascended to become immortals, but their sect did not produce a single immortal. Kongzi says that for this reason, they suffered from the same sect. The head says that they have motives to respect the guy as their boss. They hope that he can become the first true immortal in the Liu Yun Sword sect, and then they can change to the Liu Yun Immortal sect. The female elder began to look at the guy with a strange look and said that they really hope for him, that he can become immortal and develop their sect well, which is why they chose him. The main character, putting his hand to his heart, realizes that he will have to ascend to immortality. Even if he does not ascend, he will create a real immortal for them. These people really rely on him. The brown-haired man thinks that their leader can handle this, especially when the Yanxian sect came. Qiangzi Liu Yun did everything possible to protect him, so he should thank him, because it will be fair. The elders realized that this guy was really going to help them all, and began to bow to him, thanking him for his kindness. They would keep this in mind and wait for his further actions. The guy found etiquette of the ancients very boring, so he starts yawning a lot. He really wants to start watching short videos on TikTok. He hasn't played on his phone for a long time and misses these times. The bearded man makes it clear to the young man that no matter what his majesty wishes, they are ready to do everything possible for him, but they do not understand what a short video is, because they have never heard of it before. Xiao, turning away from them, gives an example of a short video in the form of a dance of a group of young girls wearing little clothes to some music, but later the guy stopped, thinking that they still wouldn't understand him, but the elders and the head pretended to be smart and cunning. Starting to look at each other, they realized that they had the same plan, pretending that they understood everything. They told the guy that they would definitely fulfill his wish. Next, the events are transferred to some building. The main character sits inside, surrounded by a bunch of beautiful girls. Liu Shuang sits next to him, and the guy understands that, at his request, a supposedly short video is being performed for him. The girls in front of him begin to dance. All the actions taking place in the room happen the same way as he asked. A group of girls dance to some pleasant music, and he enjoys them. The guy felt a little funny because of this. Because even though the elders and the head didn't really understand him, they did everything in their power, and this is actually very cool. The yellow-haired one, meanwhile, understands that she would not have come here if not for the teacher's request. Next, the main character suddenly grabbed Lu Shuang right by the waist and pulled her towards him, while he asked the other girls to turn on the music and continue dancing. The yellow-haired one seemed not happy with his actions. Then, apparently, we see the events that take place after that party. You can see how the main character is carried home by Lu Shuang, and he simply leans on her because he got drunk like a pig. She put the guy on the bed and began to undress him because the head of the house really insists that she continue to serve the guy. She can't understand why her younger sisters are jealous of her because she does hard work. The drunken Xiao, while his Taoist friend was undressing him, decided to grab his spiritual sword right in his sleep and, hugging him, turn over on his side, calling him Lu Shuang and asking him not to leave him. The dissatisfied yellow-haired woman just looks at him. She didn't like the fact that this fool can't even distinguish a man from a sword. And apparently it seems to her that Xiao wants to greatly humiliate her. After such deep disappointment, the yellow-haired girl decides to leave the room and close the door in order to leave the main character alone and let him sleep, because at the moment she does not want to bother him. We are shown the events that take place in the room of the sleeping Xiao. Liu Shuang, meanwhile, is glad that he has finally calmed down and is surprised that he is really capable of idleness. It would seem that nothing portends trouble. The guy is sleeping peacefully. But then his spiritual sword, which he was hugging, suddenly begins to turn into a beautiful girl, who is very glad that after 8,000 years, she saw the light of the sun. Her name is Kege, and she is the spirit of the immortal sword. When she wakes up, she enjoys the smell of the world and finds herself, of course, in the arms of the sleeping protagonist, since he had previously hugged the sword. Turning to Xiao, she looks straight at him and thinks he is handsome. Moreover, he has a 9-yang Vajra body, which is rare in 1,000 years. It seems she has some plans for this guy. She hugged him as if she was going to kiss him. She begins to get closer to him, and it seems to her that by some chance, he developed such a body, because this is really a rare thing, and he seems lucky. First, she asks for his help in finding her brother, then her brother will help her restore her golden ring. And finally, she will do what she has in mind for the main character right now. She is already starting to lick her lips, feeling passion for the handsome Xiao. She says that she is going to eat him right now in order to quickly restore her strength, and it is as if she is already going to do this. But unexpectedly for this fool, the guy wakes up abruptly and makes it clear that he heard and understood everything. She first wants to find her own brother, and then eat the brown-haired man. But at that moment, she's surprised that he woke up. In the next chapter, Xiao tells the girl that she not only has a powerful body, but can also sober up quickly, and she, as befits many women, says that no man is good, and they are all liars. Xiao tells this beauty that she cannot express all her anger on other people. Just because she was offended by one man, he unblocked her from the Qian family for a long time. He does not understand why she is still thinking of eating him. She realized that she was really acting too harshly and decided to get to know the guy instead, saying her name and who she really was. Apparently now she expects the same from the main character. She promises that she will not eat him, only on the condition that he helps her find her brother. The guy thought about her proposal and says that he will do it without any problems. He just wants to find out where her brother is. Kege says that she hasn't seen her brother for about 8,000 years, so she doesn't know his location, and fully hopes for this brown-haired guy. The guy already understands that he has hard work ahead of him. But then the guy had an idea on how to make the search for her brother easier. He just raised his finger and asked this spirit if she had a special token that was associated with her brother. He should help in the search. Fortunately for Xiao, she gives him her brother's golden order. It blinks brightly because of its color and looks very cute. The guy understands that with its help, his work will become a little easier. Looking at this token, the brown-haired man thought about some kind of magic and does not understand the origin of his sword spirit. But at the same time, he is already about to raise his hand and take this damn token. By pressing his finger on the token of this girl's brother, he enters the system, which says that the distance between them is large and asks to activate the mainline login task. By activating this, he learns that the entrance is limited to 3 days. A smart guy decides to use the system's navigation and asks her how to get to the secret kingdom of demons. The Chinese ChatGPT showed the route, and Xiao realized that he would have to walk thousands of kilometers, which is a very long time. Kege noticed how the guy in her eyes was looking into some kind of emptiness. Even though he was using the system, she doesn't understand what this fool is doing and asks where her brother is. and he's going to give an answer. He told everything he knew. Her brother lives in a fishing village on the coast of Dongzhou. He has no chance in the near future. Without planes and trains, he will have to go there for a whole month, and that's too long. Kege is very angry at how stupid the guy is. She reminds him that he can use a flying sword and get there in less than half a day. He is apparently surprised by his stupidity and only just remembered this. But there is one problem. The main character is still only at the QE purification stage and cannot yet use flying swords. So he wants to ride directly on the sword spirit. She clarifies with the guy what he said, making sure that she didn't hear it. Apparently, she didn't like the offer to ride her, but the guy still confirmed that he said everything exactly like that. The pink-haired girl is not happy that he still uses dirty words. She thinks that he is trying to disgust her and already wants to destroy him. And the guy is trying to explain that he does not know how to fly with a sword and just wants to ride her. Fortunately for the brown-haired man, after these words, she understood his intentions and realized that this was all a misunderstanding on her part. The guy, trying to catch his breath, realized that this woman was too dangerous and needed to be treated. The girl, sticking out her big balls, says that since he can find her brother, it doesn't matter whether she takes him there or someone else. And Xiao asks how she can take him there. Kyuhi turned back into a spiritual sword and levitates in front of Xiao. She asks him to climb on top of her, but before that, don't forget to clean his shoes. He, being happy, is going to do what she said. Then, suddenly for this crazy girl, he abruptly decides to close this sword back into its holster, apparently thinking that in this way, the spirit will definitely not be able to turn back into human form. But she does not understand what he is doing. The evil main character has finally locked this sword in a holster, and looking at it, tries to start communicating with him, telling her not to think about leaving anymore, and he still considers her crazy. Looking at the sword, he puts the sealing talisman into Ju. Even the nascent soul stage can't break it. As long as no one opens it, she will never be able to get out of there in her life. The girl did not like this news. She's trying to attract the attention of the cruel protagonist and asks him not to do this. She cannot believe that he was really able to lock her up in this way. This Giga Chad is tired of listening to the stupid sword, and he is trying to calm his excitement with the help of his threats. He promises to throw this sword into the toilet if he does not shut up, and apparently this influenced Kiji. And she fell silent. Sigma lay down on the bed and is not going to go to Dongzhou because it is too far from here, especially since there may be danger on the road, so he is just going to stay and focus on his practice. However, the system turned out to be on the girl's side and tells Xiao that if he does not fulfill her request, he will be punished. The options for punishment are crushing bones and other cruelties. This all really scared the brown-haired boy, and he is already about to go on his way. Next, we are shown the Zhanzong Mountain Gate. We see Liu Shuang, who right now, being in the open air, is practicing using her new powerful spiritual sword to kick the butts of her opponents. Meanwhile, people watching her admire how she goes through the stages, coupled with the blessing of the best Zanpakuto. She is able to lead the discussion on immortality. They congratulate her on this event. She doesn't like that everyone thinks that she has great talent after all. She got everything because of the Zanpakuto. She understands that discussing immortality is inevitable, but she can't reach the golden elixir stage, let alone become someone who will earn the glory of the sect. The original starting player this time was Yan Kong, but now he is dead and this burden falls on her shoulders. She assumes that she can improve her strength by cultivating along with the Zanpakuto and considers herself an extraordinary woman. But suddenly, in this calm time, they are interrupted by one man who, turning to the yellow-haired woman, tells her that the master is calling her, who asked her to go to Zhongnei on an urgent matter. She listened to him and is already about to leave. Then she came to Jiangge. In the room in which she is now, Xiao and Xiangzi Liuyun are sitting in front of her. She stood in front of them and asked why she is here and what they want from her. She pays tribute to these two, and the bearded man asks not to be so polite. He called her today because there is a plague on the eastern continent. Most likely, it is because of the demon cultivators. They were sent an invitation to finish them all off. Continuing to still show respect to his master, Liu Shuang makes it clear to this man that he is going to set off with them right now to deal with the demon cultivators. Xiangzi Luyun was pleased with this and he offered to solve this issue for her together with Xiao. He also added that the main character wants to go to Dongzhou to practice and invites her to go with him. The events of the new chapter begin with the main character and Liu Shuang standing on the edge of some cliff. The guy tells the girl that he is bad at school and doesn't know how to fly with a sword and asks her to take him to Dongzhou. She thinks that Xiao called her here specifically just for her to give him a lift, and he asks her to hurry up at this moment because she shouldn't contradict her master's order and should start as soon as possible. She doesn't like the guy's behavior and starting to look at him with her crazy look. She is going to fulfill his request. But at the same time, it begins to seem as if the yellow-haired woman is planning something about him. The two of them stand on a large sword and are about to fly away from this place. The girl asks him if he is standing firmly on the surface. He says yes, so they can already fly off on their way. But in the end, the girl apparently decided to play a trick on the poor guy. She took off so sharply that the guy almost fell from a great height and even managed to get scared because of this. And she just continued to fly further. Because of this, the main character felt a sharp rush of adrenaline, as if he was now on a roller coaster, and in order not to fall, he decided to grab onto something. But he couldn't find anything better than the girl's core. She insulted him and asked to let him go. He tells her that in no case is he going to let her go, because otherwise he will simply fall to the ground and break. The girl heard him and understands that it is useless to beg him. So she simply promised to slow down if he lets her go. Then you can see how they fly over a beautiful river that flows right between the mountains. Judging by our heroes, you can understand that Liu Shuang has already reduced her flight speed because the guy let her go and is no longer afraid of falling. They arrived in Dongtai City, and there is a plague in this place. And as for the Donghai fishing village that Xiao Che wants to go to is still hundreds of miles away. So they will go there tomorrow. They entered the city itself, flying into it on a large sword, and are already going to get off it to look around and explore the area and maybe even try to find something useful for them. Suddenly, the main character, making cute eyes, asks Liu Shuang to take him to the fishing town, and she says that her energy is not endless and she urgently needs to take a break because she is tired. But this guy apparently has a solution to this problem in his pocket. He offers the girl a bottle with a certain drug, drinking which she will replenish her energy. But she turns away from him and says that she is not going to take it. Well, then they have no choice but to wander around the empty city and look around. The main character cannot understand why in such a big city there is no one around and already thinks that everyone is quarantined at home because of the plague. These two are already approaching the division of the Luyun sword sect in Dongzhou. Meanwhile, the girl does not understand what kind of quarantine we are talking about and talks about the fact that this building is their branch. And when she is going to rest, she thinks to find out about the source of the plague. Xiao decides to be the first to enter this building. But when they open the door, they both stumble upon a terrible picture that shocks them. People are lying around just like the morning after the New Year and do not show any signs of life. Liu Shuang no longer knows what to do and in a hurry raises Liu Xian to her sleeping younger sister, trying to find out what is happening here. But she apparently does not yet know that these people are actually without life. The main character stops her in time by grabbing her hand.
He asks the girl not to touch these people, and right now he's going to explain to her exactly why she shouldn't do this, even if she wants it so badly.
He explains to her that in fact all these people are already dead, and you cannot touch people who have died from the plague. Otherwise, they can infect with their disease those people who dare to touch them. The attentive Liu Shuang notices that not only were they infected with the plague, but someone also sucked out all the soul essence and blood from them. This must be the work of demon cultivators, which sounds very logical, because they like to do this. While these guys are examining the corpses, suddenly the yellow-haired girl hears a vase being knocked over in one of the buildings. It can't fall on its own, so there's definitely someone there. She takes out her Zanpakuto, thinks it's a demon cultivator, and is going to finish him off. After breaking into the building, the yellow-haired girl, without much hesitation, took it and tried to strike a man who considered it a demon cultivator. But he easily managed to parry her heavy blow. It turned out that this is some nice girl. She is slightly unhappy that her sister attacks her without much thought and considers her too impulsive. She already thinks that Liu Shuang is jealous of her beauty. The blue-eyed girl still looks very angry, and calling that girl shameless, asks her who she is, if not a demon cultivator, of course. And she is already going to cut the stranger into pieces, but she was stopped by a serious-minded Xiao Che. He catches his friend's hand and lowers her along with the weapon down. He asks Liu Shuang to calm down because it was not she who killed her familiar sisters, but someone else. The blue-eyed girl already thinks that the guy's heart has softened because of the girl's sweet beauty. It is suspicious to see her here because all her classmates are dead, and she is the only one standing here and most likely is the killer. The brown-haired woman is still trying to convince her Taoist partner. He tells her that all these people have been dead for several days. So what's the point of them walking here if she is a murderer? Liu Shuang apparently began to realize that she was wrong. Suddenly, the girl decides to get acquainted. She says that her name is Lan Yingying, and she is from the 10,000 Immortal sect. By order of the Alliance, she arrived to destroy the plague, so she is definitely not any killer. The blue-eyed girl said that she had heard about the younger sister Lan before, but did not think that she was at all like someone from the 10,000 Immortal sect. She was already wondering what powers this wanderer had. She is going to reach for her certificate, and apparently it is not so easy for her to do this. She tells them that getting this certificate is actually very difficult and is now going to show it to them. The yellow-haired girl took out a certificate and shows it to these two at their personal request. She shows it near her chest, and right there it shines. Liu Shuang became a little awkward, and the guy watches with pleasure. Lan Yingying Osum. Ying shows them his certificate and says that this is the personal sign of the Yang Sect, which is a gold badge with an inscription on it. This badge has a special shade. Next, we see how the blue-eyed Liu Shuang didn't like something about this girl. She starts snorting and turning around quietly, decides to call her a witch, while no one in her opinion hears this. The main character happily approaches this girl, and you can see how he begins to communicate with her in a way too friendly. As if they have known each other for a long time, this of course does not stop Liu Shuang, and she looks very dissatisfied. Paying attention to the suspicious Liu Shuang, he understands that this is not just a woman with big breasts and no brains. Judging by her behavior, he already thinks that she has some kind of intuition and senses danger. Later, the golden-haired girl approached him and said that many people have died here and they are scared. She asked the guy to protect them all. Xiao himself already notices some oddities in the behavior of this girl, and it seems that something is wrong with her. The main character, realizing that this girl should first be tested for honesty, uses all his acting skills and with a smile on his face, tells her that he will definitely be able to protect her. For this, she is very grateful to him and considers him a good person. We can see Lan Yingying's thoughts. She decides to insult someone right now and promises to tear that person into pieces. Apparently, Liu Shuang's suspicions about her were not in vain, and she really is a bad person. The golden-haired one turns to her older sister and says that Xiao wants to go somewhere with her, so Liu Shuang should go with him. The yellow-haired one is already starting to speculate where they will go together now. The main character decides to take advantage of the moment while Lan Yingying was distracted by the conversation and sharply hit her on the back, thereby intending to enter the system and find out her true intentions towards them. The guy is logged into the system and already sees a mysterious box in front of him. He just asked the system to tell him the biography of this strange and very suspicious girl. And it already seems that he is going to take some object out of the box. Xiao put his hand into this box and took out, apparently, some kind of women's dress with a white daisy painted right on it. The main character immediately fell in love with this item and already began to drool. In the next chapter, it turns out that our main character pulled out this girl's underwear from a mysterious box. She felt that she suddenly felt cold, although she clearly remembers that she put something on herself this morning. Meanwhile, Liu Shuang approaches the main character and says that he wants to bury dead people, and if he is not in a hurry, he can wait for her. He says that he will help her with this matter, while trying to hide the underwear under his clothes. While he was trying to hide the women's clothes, he suddenly realized what he was doing and began to feel like a shameless person. But it seems like he can't do anything yet because this belt was given to him by the mysterious box. If it weren't for the system reminder, Xiao would have forgotten about the other items, and he is already about to get a new item that appeared right in this mysterious box. I wonder what it is this time. It turned out that there was some kind of golden object in the box. The main character took it out of there with his own hands, and it turned out that this object belonged to Yu Xuaner and was already thinking about what he could do with it. The holy maiden of the heavenly demon, Yu Xuaner, suddenly approaches him. With a cute video, she comes straight to Xiao and turns to him, intending to tell him something, and apparently, this is important. She tells him to gather Liu Shuang that they are all Taoists, and she is here to help them. The main character believes that the best solution now would be to stand and do nothing, waiting until this witch wants to do something else. They all went outside. Yu Xuaner doesn't understand why they put on masks, and the guy explains the rules that you need to wash your hands often and wear a mask to get rid of the plague. They are also going to burn the corpses to avoid the spread of the disease. Xiao explains to them that bodies that are infected with the plague need to be cremated, and houses and courtyards also need to be disinfected with lime water. The golden-haired one is proud of her comrade's intelligence, and Liu Shuang is glad that he stayed, otherwise she could have become infected. They look at the fire and wish that their fellow disciples rest in peace. Even though Xiao came here not long ago, he already considers this place home and will not allow the death of his family to be in vain. Yu Xuaner also speaks words of support. While they were watching this process, Liu Shuang noticed some signal in the sky and realized what it meant. She warned others that it was a distress signal from the immortal Zhenwu dynasty, and apparently they would have to do something about it. The girl and the guy are already planning to fly to this place, because this dynasty arose before them, and they have been allies for a long time, so they must save them. The golden-haired one asks to wait for her, because she wants to go with them. Liu Shuang understands that the signal is directing them towards the fishing village of Donghai. The guy thought that his registration point is located there, and most likely this plague is somehow connected with the spirit of the sword and her brother. We are shown two people sitting as if right next to a blue fire. Apparently, this is the same Donghai fishing village. Judging by the houses and the water source very close to the settlement, further events will take place here. The guy with white hair is the prince of the immortal Zhenwu dynasty named Li Qiankun. He, turning to his older sister, says that if he cannot withstand this spiritual fire, he will go crazy and asks her without hesitation to finish him off in this case. The girl with short hair is the elder sister of Sectia Xianxian. She listened carefully to her comrade and asks him to do the same with her if she cannot withstand this fire. Next, a guy with a big sword, who is the left guard of the heavenly demon sect, comes up to them, he laughs at them and says that he will not die so easily after being hit by the 9 Phantom Plague formation. He still continues to stand in front of these people, right next to the fire. He apparently does not believe in their success and says that when the plague eats their souls, he will suck them back into people. Apparently, this guy is not simple. We are again shown Lu Shuang, who, judging by her appearance, looks like she is very serious. She is holding her strong spiritual in her hands and seems to have noticed this guy with a large weapon and is about to strike him.